Welcome back on this Thursday as we continue with These Things Are Written, looking at Isaiah chapter 4. Yesterday we wrapped up chapter 3, and today we are continuing and going through all of chapter 4. Now it's a short chapter, only 6 verses, but like we have been doing in the past few days at least, we're just going to read a few verses at a time and then talk about it at that point. We begin with Isaiah 4, verse 1. And 7 women shall take a hold of one man in that day, saying, We will eat our own bread and wear our own clothes. Only let us be called by your name. Take away our reproach. This is one of those times where the chapter breaks really at the wrong place. This verse should be included with chapter 3 more so. Remember, chapter 3 ended with the men being killed in battle. And this shows the toll of that devastation, that there are 7 women for just one man. In other words, the man population has been wiped out as a result of war. And the women are focusing on trying to find that husband, doing whatever they can do just so they can be married, so they can have children. The reproach that they're talking about, taking away our reproach, is that they would not be able to have children without a husband. So remember Sarah and Hannah and also Elizabeth in the New Testament. They did not have children and were looked down upon. There was a certain stigma back then for the women not having children. So that again wraps up the prophecy of judgment against God's people for their sins of focusing on themselves and what they want rather than following God's will and being obedient to God. Now, as we continue with the rest of chapter 4, it too connects with the rest. But this is, I guess, the gospel that goes with the law that we heard. The judgment is going to happen, but then in the end, there will be relief. There will be that remnant. We read about that in chapter 2, or in verse 2 through the end of the chapter. I'm just going to read verse 2 at this point. In that day, the branch of the Lord shall be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the land shall be the pride and the honor of the survivors of Israel. In that day. So what day are they talking about? Well, it could be the day that they returned from exile. It could also be the day that Christ came, and it could also be the end of times when the new Jerusalem will be there. In fact, it's being fulfilled in each of those 3 areas. Remember, a prophecy focuses on multiple fulfillments often, and this is one time where we see those multiple fulfillments. It talks about the branch of the Lord. And as we're focusing on the Jesse tree, the branch of David, the line of David, or the shoot of Jesse, it makes me think of a promise here of the Messiah. So I kind of take this as being part of that whole messianic prophecy that is connected to this. But notice the glory, how wonderful it is. It shall be beautiful and glorious. After hearing of all of the destruction, all of the death, all of the ugliness in chapter 3, we now get the beauty and the gloriousness. And the fruit of the land shall be the pride and honor of the survivors of Israel. Pretty amazing picture, isn't it? All of a sudden, a change like that. Verse 3, and he who is left in Zion and remains in Jerusalem will be called holy. Everyone who has been recorded for life in Jerusalem, when the Lord shall have washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion, and cleansed the bloodstains of Jerusalem from the midst by a spirit of judgment and a spirit of burning. So as we look at this, a few things to point out. Notice, and he who is left in Zion and remains in Jerusalem, first of all, will be called holy. He will have his name recorded for life in Jerusalem. The Lord shall have washed away their filth, cleanse the blood stains, all right? How does he do this? Through judgment and the spirit of burning. Judgment and burning, the refining fire which purifies us, purifies God's people. Now, when the people returned to exile, they returned and they tried to have that righteousness, that perfection, but no matter the amount of laws that were there, man breaks it, right? If we're told not to do something, that makes us more likely to do that, and that's what happened in the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. Also, so in that way, this focuses again on Christ and the righteousness that he brings to us, that our names are written in the new book for New Jerusalem by faith in him, and we are cleansed, our filth is washed away through Christ and his work. And we will be holy. We will live forever in Jerusalem, the new Jerusalem, cleansed and clean on that last day when he comes again. So again, we see all three fulfillments here in this part. Verses 5 and 6. Then the Lord will create over the whole site of Mount Zion and over her assemblies a cloud by day and smoke from the shining of the flaming fire by night. For over all the glory there shall be a canopy. There will be a booth for the shade by day from the heat, and for refuge and a shelter from the storm and rain. As I look at this picture again, the cloud by day and smoke of the shining of the fire, flaming fire by night, that's a symbol of his presence that God used at the time of Moses as they were wandering around in the wilderness. God would lead them by a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. It was also at the dedication of the temple where the Spirit of the Lord filled the temple in the form of a cloud. That is how we know of God's presence in the Old Testament. But yet he also gives not just his presence, but his protection as well. The booth by shade for the heat of the day, refuge from the storm and the rain. God is promising his presence and his protection for God's people in Jerusalem when they would return, but also that presence and protection that we have through Christ yet today. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at the story of the vineyard from Isaiah chapter 5, one of my favorite parts of Isaiah's prophecies. We're going to get into that. And as we've gotten a little bit more gospel this time, right, than we have the last few, we're going to get more into those prophecies coming up in the next couple of weeks as well from Isaiah 7 and 9 and 11, those great prophecies that point forward to Christ, just as this one did in chapter 4. Looking forward to that. We'll see you again tomorrow. God bless.